Oh man, I got a fun episode for you guys. In this box right here, this is the future of construction in America. We're talking air sealing today at my house. Today's video is sponsored by Aero Barrier. Let's get going. All right guys, welcome back to my house under construction. We got a really fun day today. I met Aero Barrier at the International Builder Show about 3 years ago and have used it on one other house prior to this. But this is a technology that I think is a total game changer for a well-built house. Now I showed you this earlier. This is a box, a kind of an all-in-one box that's going to mist out a caulking system into my air that's going to end up doing all kinds of air sealing and all those micro places where my envelope leaks. Now let me back up a little bit and kind of break this down for you. We want a really airtight house because when air leaks into our houses, let's say this hose bib over here, if that air were leaking through that hose bib, through that hole in my envelope in my house, air leaking in, especially in the south, would probably bring with it humidity, and it would certainly bring with it pollen and other nastiness that might be outside. And when it leaks in, it might find a cold condensing surface, like let's say the back of my sheetrock. And that's where I find a lot of mold growth on remodel houses that are a decade or two old, is air that leaked in and hit the back of the sheetrock and mold formed on the back of that sheetrock. So by having a more airtight house, we're gonna be able to control our envelope so that we can have better indoor air quality, better comfort, and of course, better efficiency. Now I get a lot of people that say houses are too tight, but I would refute that and say, no, we want really good control of our envelope, and then we'll bring fresh air in on our terms, and we can filter it and we can distribute it. Check out my other videos on this house where I put a Zender fresh air system in. But on this video, we're gonna be talking about Aero Barrier. Now this is kind of their 2.0 version. This is a whole new system from them. They're calling this Aero Barrier Connect. I would call it Aero Barrier 2.0. And basically inside this Pelican case right here is a battery and a pump and a jar of sealant. And what's gonna happen is this system right here is gonna aerosolize basically a latex caulk-like product. They're partnered with Tremco, and this product is gonna get sprayed into the air. It's kind of a latex aerosolized caulk, for lack of a better term. And then while that's happening, we're actually going to pressurize the house. We're gonna blow into the house. And if you can think of a balloon getting blown up, what happens if there's a couple pinholes in that balloon? That balloon is gonna lose air from all those pinholes. Now, if that balloon happened to be your bike tires or your car tire, how would you fix that? You'd use Fix-A-Flat, or you'd use slime maybe, like I use in my kids' tires. And that slime rolls around in the tube and seals all those leaks. And that's basically what this Aero Barrier system is doing. We're gonna pressurize the house. The house is gonna lose air from all those random small leaks throughout my whole house. And this aerosolized caulk is gonna wanna pressurize to the outside because we're pushing air through the walls. And as those microparticles of Aero Barrier sealant are forced through the wall, they're gonna start globbing onto each other. They're gonna start touching and sealing each other. And what'll happen, you'll actually notice we drilled some holes in my door over here. These holes throughout the whole envelope, whether they're small or big, will start to seal up. We're gonna throw a GoPro on this when we do it so you can see it, but check this out. We've got a little small 3/16 drill bit, a 3/8, a 1/2 inch, and then a giant hole that we put a little bug screen on it that could simulate the miles of cracks that I've got on my house. And we're gonna show you how the Aero Barrier system is gonna actually seal over those. Very, very cool system. So with that being said, let's get started on the process and we'll explain a little bit more. All right guys, we're in process. Here's the fan. This is the Aero Barrier Connect fan. And this fan is so powerful, they could do a 20, 30, 50,000 square foot building. So my little 2,800 square foot house, no big deal. This is pressurizing the house. And now we can't be in there. You can kind of see a big fog. It looks like a San Francisco Bay morning in there. That atomized caulking is basically in the air and it's finding all those leak points. Now, a couple other things. This is a big part of their system. This is the brain right here. And they've got air from a compressor going outside to the inside. This is also providing power. And then this little computer right here is basically the brain that's telling each one of those systems through a Wi-Fi mesh network what to do. And then back here, wirelessly, this is kind of the control panel. So earlier when we first started the fan, we were able to look at the ACH number on here. And I did a pre-blower door test and got my house to around 1 ACH 50. They calculated at 1.1, so we were pretty close. But now that we've been running for, I don't know, 30 or so minutes, if you look down on the screen here, my envelope leakage is already down to 0.38. That's crazy, below 0.4. So it's twice as leaky, or half as leaky, I should say, as it was before. And then that's the CFM flow rate through the fan. Now, one thing that's interesting is going around the house and trying to see where some of the leaks are. Let's walk over to the garage and I'll show you that. So my garage to house connection, I knew was gonna be a particularly leaky spot. You know, I've got these joists running from the inside the garage to the inside. This wall separates my garage from my kitchen laundry room area. And upstairs is my boys' bedroom. So I used basically a froth pack of foam up there to spray foam that. And when I did that, I took my house from around a 1.5 or 6 ACH 50 down to 1. But then when these guys came, it's a little hard to see on the video. It's gonna be hard to see, but see that piece of tape right there that's flapping in the breeze? That's leakage right there. That's leakage through that joist area. So even though I spray foamed it, there's tons of leakage through this area. And all that really fine atomized latex caulk is globbing onto all those areas, and all those miles of tiny cracks is sealing those up. Now, they actually have a little diagram at the beginning that shows if we were to add up all those holes, I forget the exact number, but it'd be like 40 square inches of leakage on the house. And we're gonna tighten that down to a much, much smaller area. All right, guys, one more thing on this wall. Check this out. If I shine my flashlight up here, you can see all the particulate matter in the air. This wall earlier, when I ran my hand on it, I could feel the air coming down from above. And if I shine my flashlight on the zip right there, see that white stuff? That's actually the sealant, the Aero Barrier sealant. That's not spray foam. We did cut the spray foam so it'd be flush with the drywall coming out. But that's Aero Barrier that's accumulating on that wall. I think that there's actually leakage on the back side of that joist right there. And that's where it's kind of streaming in and hitting the wall. But you can look, if you just look at that point of that flashlight, there's absolutely sealant in the air out here that's accumulating. So we're gonna keep going here on the ceiling and keep getting the house a little tighter.
0.10 ACH 50.
Oh my gosh, Paul, we just tightened this house up 10x tighter than where we started today.
Yeah, in about an hour.
Dang, let's take the blower door off. We'll go inside and show these guys a couple things, Paul, and then I wanna ask you some real specific questions. We wanna get into price, we wanna get into what to expect, what kind of houses we should do. We got a bunch of questions for Paul. We'll meet y'all inside. All right, the house has been opened up for a few minutes now, probably 10, 15 minutes, right, Paul? We're trying to get all that mist out of the air, right?
Yep. Yeah, so it's been open for a little while. It's safe to come back in and we can see what happened.
And I know for sure we did a bunch of sealing between the house right here and the garage, where those joists came through. But let's first look at this tester that we did. This is just a sheet of plywood that we drilled some holes where I have some glazing not in yet. And man, look at that, Paul. All three of those drilled holes up to a 1/2 inch look amazing. And this big hole, which was what, 1.1 inches, is what Andrew wrote down here. Let's see what this thing looked like. Look at that. That is wild. That bug screen is thoroughly coated. That's really neat. And it feels like a kind of a latex caulking, right?
Yeah, so it's an acrylic. It's a water-based acrylic, so it'll act just like a caulk, and once it's dry, it'll be just like you caulked it.
That's really cool. Can you show me, or do you think you could see any of the other areas that got sealed over here?
As we were sealing, we felt some air in the garage, and if you look across near that top plate there, you can see the white bead of caulk across the top there.
And I bet if we got on a ladder, we'd see more of that on top.
Up on top, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you look up in this corner.
Oh, look at that corner's all white right there, isn't it?
Yep, there's two seals there in between those pieces of wood. Creates a nice clean seal where there was leakage originally.
That's interesting.
And then yeah, if you look at this pipe here in the bottom, There's a pretty good sized hole right there.
That. There was a big hole there.
At some point that was leaking pretty significantly, and now it's completely sealed.
Wow. That's amazing.
So yeah, you don't have to know where the seal or where the leakage is going to happen, but Aero Barrier is going to find it and seal it for you.
I'd be willing to bet there's a couple places that I drilled and missed. Let's walk around and see if we can find those places.
All right.
All right, what do you see over here, Paul?
Oh yeah, look right here.
Okay.
Looks like there was a wire that was drilled that may not have been caulked or sealed.
Oh, you know what? That's being drilled into my garage below, and I totally missed that. I didn't think that's out of the conditioned envelope.
Yeah, so if you look back in the corner there, there's some pretty significant leakage in the corner, but
there is.
Yeah, like I said earlier, these holes here.
Oh, there's a hole that got drilled and never put a wire in it.
Yep.
Looks like he drilled it and then put the wire in a different hole after all.
Yeah,
oh,
so
dang.
Again, the beauty of Aero Barrier, you don't know that the leak's there, but Aero Barrier is going to find it and seal it for you.
That's wild. And you know, I was so cautious with my trades. Everybody that came on site, I said, look, before you drill anything, I need to know where you're going to drill. We need to make sure that Andrew's around so we can seal it with either tape or some kind of fluid applied. And yet I missed some of those. And all those numbers added up to a pretty significant number, which meant I wasn't going to get my certification without you guys coming to help me with that.
Yeah, and like I said, you don't have to know where the leakage is. We're going to use physics and we're going to find it. And like we saw here, whether you know it's there or not, Aero Barrier is going to seal it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Paul, a couple common questions that I think people watching this may be asking.
Yeah.
First off, why are the walls not sticky or tacky?
Yeah, so that's one of the beauties of Aero Barrier. It only collects where there's leakage in the envelope. So if you think about this house, we put positive pressure on this house, a pretty good amount of positive pressure. And if you think of physics, positive or high pressure is always going to try to move to low pressure. Mm-hmm. So when we pressurized this house, the air was trying to get out of the high pressure environment to the low pressure outside. So it was self-identifying the leaks essentially as we were going. So when we inject the sealant or atomize the sealant, it stays suspended in the air, and the air becomes our method of transport. Wherever the air is going and leaking out of the structure, the sealant particles will go there and stick.
Yep.
So the one thing that has to occur is if you think about the leak in the structure, when the air is going to that leak, as it gets closer to the leak, it's going to accelerate and change direction as it speeds through the leak. When that happens, it causes the sealant particles to crash into each other and start to collect on that leak. Now, when you think about the drywall or the exterior sheathing here, because it's part of the positive pressure plane, there's no pressure differential. Right. So the sealant particles are not just going to stick to it because it hit it. There has to be that change in direction and change in speed where the particles can collide and collect on that seal. And the one thing about Aero Barrier that's nice is it's an inert sealant. Mm-hmm. So there's no chemical reaction occurring. There's no off-gassing that's occurring as the seal is occurring or sealant is collecting. But it only collects where the seal or where the leak is going through the structure.
It's microscopic elves with latex caulk guns, basically, going through the entire house and sealing it.
Yeah, so whether we do this at rough in or drywall, you could come in and you could rub the windows, you could rub the drywall, any vertical surface, you're never going to know we were here because it's not going to create a film or a mess over everything. And you saw in the prep work, we covered any finished horizontals.
Yep.
It's not because it's going to seal those horizontals, but when we turn off the blower door, it is going to settle a little bit. And you can feel a little bit of tackiness
under our feet.
But that's just because once we turned off the blower door, any sealant particles that were left in the air fell down.
Yeah, and
gravity took effect.
A lot of them streamed out of the building too when we opened all the windows and doors.
Yep.
All right, Paul, talk to me about cost. I know that's a hard one. You've got
Sure.
90 dealers around the North American market. Each one of those dealers owns your proprietary equipment and is setting pricing and giving bids.
Yep.
But can you give us any cost range on this?
Sure. So like you said, all of our installers typically set their own price. We don't set the price for our installers. So it does vary based on markets and labor rates in those markets.
Sure.
But typically, there's two things that we look at when we start to price. How leaky is the house when we start? And obviously, the higher the leakage, that could obviously negatively impact pricing. And obviously, the tighter you want to go, it's going to use a little bit more material and take a little bit more time. So it may change the price a little bit. But on a standard application, you're going to be looking anywhere from $1 to $1.50 a square foot of finished floor area, depending on your target and depending on the state of the structure when we show up.
That's not bad. If you don't mind me extrapolating those numbers a little bit, Paul, I'm just shy of 3,000 square feet.
Yep.
So Sean Harris, my local Aero Barrier dealer, may have given me a bid of, let's say $3,000 to $5,000.
Yep.
It helps that we didn't cover the floors. We didn't have a ton of prep. We just prepped the windows. Had this been a more finished house, you would have had a lot more prep work and more money.
Yep.
But for that kind of money, a couple $1,000, what a savings for me as a builder, because now I don't have a guy going through the house and trying to tighten all this up for a day or 2 days, and I still don't make my blower door test.
Yeah.
And I don't get my certification. And I would say for a lot of people watching my videos, I get a lot of questions about, hey, do you know a builder in the middle of Virginia or the middle of Iowa that does your methods, Matt? Well, with your service, I can say, well, one option is find a good craftsman, find a good high integrity builder who's good at their water management details, because bulk water gets in, forget it, we got problems. But if you can manage water in the house, then Aero Barrier can come in and help an average builder manage air. Did I say that properly?
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing to know is Aero Barrier is not a fix for poor craftsmanship.
That's right.
We do not seal holes, we seal leaks.
Right.
So, think about what the work you did or Andrew did in managing all the holes in the house, taping them or sealing them. What if you didn't have that stress, right? What if you didn't have to micromanage it to that extent? We still want you to build a really good house.
That's right.
Again, this is not a fix for poor craftsmanship, but you can take some of that stress off and you can seal the house really, really well without all the expensive details or tapes or caulks or anything like that.
That's good stuff, Paul. What have I missed, man? What did we not talk about in this video that you want to get across to people watching this?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is any builder can use Aero Barrier. We will work with you and build it into your build process as appropriate. Here in Matt's climate zone and here in this house, it's a conditioned attic space. So we can seal at rough end. As long as it's a conditioned attic, we can seal it at this stage. If you're using spray foam, we'll come right after spray foam. If it's before, or if you're using fibrous insulation, we'll come before that insulation's in the wall. In more northern climates, you're getting into more vented attics, where we typically will apply after first coat of drywall mud and all the drywall's in place, because typically that's where your primary air barrier is.
Right.
And then obviously in multifamily, we want to compartmentalize those units from each other. So we'll do it after first coat of mud in those applications too. The one thing to remember is bring us in and let us consult with you, because ideally we're applying at your primary air barrier, right? Contrary to the name, Aero Barrier is not a primary air barrier. We're an accessory or an enhancement to your primary air barrier. So we want to apply at the primary air barrier. And here in Matt's house, it's obviously at the exterior sheathing. So this was the ideal time to apply. But in other applications that may differ. So just work with us. You don't have to be perfect at everything, but consult Aero Barrier and let us come help you get a little bit tighter, higher performance home.
Yeah, that's a great point, Paul. Let me just break down quickly what you said, which basically was, in my house, the zip sheathing's the Aero Barrier, or is my Aero Barrier.
Yep.
So Aero Barrier sheathing is sealing to that outside sheathing.
Yep.
So that's why we're in the stud phase.
Yep.
In Minnesota, where they may be using drywall as the Aero Barrier, they're going to have their drywall in, and certainly their lid drywall in, and then they're going to come in and do Aero Barrier. So that's going to change a little bit.
Yep.
Last question, man. When I first met you guys 3 years ago, I thought, what a game changer for existing homes.
Yeah.
If someone's watching this and has an existing home, could you do this in a house that you already own or live in?
Yeah, so there's a distinction that needs to be made. Obviously, finished versus occupied is a very different setup, but we're actually working with the Department of Energy right now through a Building America grant in doing completely finished houses, either apartments at tenant turnover, or we're doing houses that someone just bought or sold in between people taking occupancy of the house. And we're taking houses from 7 ACH to 0.6 ACH and adding some balanced ventilation into it and bringing the current housing stock up to current code.
Wow, that is exciting, Paul. And I would say that's probably the future of the next 10 years for your company.
Yeah.
Is existing homes at resale time. The house is empty, it's void of furniture. Cover all these horizontal surfaces, Aero Barrier the house, and you could take a not very well built 20, or in this case 1970s house, but this was before I was here, and bring it into really modern standards.
Yep.
Really, really cool, man. I really appreciate you guys sponsoring this video, taking the time to come out and do Aero Barrier in my house, guys. This is an impressive product. Highly recommend it. And they've got a network of folks around the country, like my local dealership, that I can call and get a bid price for my house. So highly recommend it. Is it aerobarrier.net?
Yep, aerobarrier.net. You can find all of our installers across the country. You can get more information about a project that you're building, or if you're interested in doing Aero Barrier in your marketplace, you can also get signed up to be an installer.
Build tight, ventilate right. That's what it's all about, guys. Watch my other videos talking about tightness and ventilation. Guys, if you're not currently a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. We've got new content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on build show.